A couple of weeks ago at college, I was sitting having lunch and chatting to a mathematician. He's originally from Iran, and often when we see each other, we have talks about different aspects of Christianity, as he's very interested in understanding all about it. Previous conversations we've had over lunch have dealt with those simple topics like, predestination, free will, and the meaning of life. I'm mixing with a bunch of people who do like to go into some of the easier subjects. On this occasion, he asked me what Ascension Day is, as that day we'd marked it with a rooftop service at dawn. Well, it was actually at 7:45 in the morning, but for many students that was way too early anyway. As we got to talking, we moved on to Pentecost and the coming of the Holy Spirit, and then, you've probably guessed it, the subject of the Trinity came up. How can one God be three beings and yet still only one God? And being a mathematician, my friend is often looking for tidy proofs to things. Indeed, some weeks earlier, I had met him in the senior common room where he was excitedly scribbling as he had just thought of a neat proof to a problem he had been working on for some weeks. I prefaced our conversation by saying that there is no simple way to explain how three can be one, at least not from a theological perspective. There might be a way to show it mathematically. Indeed, I can remember as an A-level student being very excited when I discovered a mathematical way to prove that 1 equals 2. So, how do we deal with this conundrum of worshipping one God, but that God is three separate beings, but is still only one? Many have tried. One illustration I've heard used is to describe God as like water, which can exist in three states: gas or steam, liquid, water, or solid, ice. But this is a flawed illustration. Indeed, it commits the heresy of modalism, because these are just three states of the same thing. The water is still water, and they don't recognize that God the Creator is distinctly different to God the Word incarnate, who is also distinctly different to God the Spirit. Another illustration I've seen is that of three circles arranged as the points of an equilateral triangle, between the circles representing Father, Son, and Spirit. And between each is a double-headed arrow, which has the words "is not" printed on it. The arrows are saying that the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Father. The Spirit is not the Father, and the Father is not the Spirit. The Son is not the Spirit, and the Spirit is not the Son. And from each is also another double-headed arrow pointing towards and from the centre of the triangle, where a fourth circle contains the word God. On these arrows are written the word "is." God is the Father, and the Father is God. God is the Son, and the Son is God. God is the Spirit, and the Spirit is God. This is sometimes known as the shield of the Trinity, and dates back at least to Peter of Poitiers in the 13th century. And whilst it may be a way of showing that three beings of the Trinity are separate, and unlike ice and steam, which are just the same, just water in different states, but it doesn't help us to understand how three can only be one, and that each are God in their own right. And yet Christianity is still a monotheistic faith, a one, mono, God, theistic faith, rather than poly or many God religion. I got thinking, is there perhaps an example of a team sport that might help us? And this got me thinking about teams with 3 people in them. Well, football is obviously out with 11. Basketball gets a little closer with 5. but they have lots of substitutions who swap in and out throughout the game, so that's really a bad example. The closest I got was polo, with 4 players, but then there are the ponies or the horses, and no, that's way too complicated and might start getting us thinking about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. No, we're going to avoid going there. I resorted to Google and found tourball has 3 players per team. Some of you might have watched it during the Olympics, but for many of us it's not a game with which we're familiar. And other than national teams at international games, I expect few of us can name a team who play it. And I had thought that maybe being able to use the team as an illustration of individuals who are separate in their own right, but together they make up a team, would help us. But of course, this is also a flawed example, as individually the players are not the team. They only become the team when they come together. And over time, members of the team can change, but it's still a team. No. This is a bad example for the Trinity, and because the Trinity was and has been Father and Son and Spirit since the start of time. Have a look at the opening chapters of Genesis or John's Gospel if you want examples of this. Perhaps you can now understand why preachers often try to be busy this Sunday in the lectionary, and so unfortunately unable to preach on the Trinity. In June 2022, when I was preparing for my retreat before being ordained deacon, I was choosing some books to take with me to read. One which I selected is called The Divine Dance by Richard Rohr. The subtitle to this book is The Trinity and Your Transformation. Richard Rohr writes very clearly, so I thought, well, great, I'll take that one and at last get a clear understanding of how to reconcile this mathematical conundrum. Not a bad thing to get nailed before I'm ordained. It was an enjoyable read, but spoiler alert if you haven't read it, it doesn't solve the maths. It doesn't solve how 1 can be 3 and 3 can be 1. However, it's still worth reading as Rohr beautifully sets out how the Trinity of these 3 beings is the perfect example of a perfect relationship. The 3 are perfectly in tune, perfectly synchronized, perfectly work as one. This is the perfect relationship. But Rohr goes further than this. Remember the subtitle of the book, The Trinity and Your Transformation. And using the icon painted by Routledge in the 15th century, this is not the original, I hasten to add. It is normally housed in the Lady Chapel if you want to have a closer look. I appreciate you can't see the detail from where you are, but it's just so when you do come across it, you will recognise the painting I'm talking about. The painting uses as its subject the hospitality of Abraham, when Abraham offered refreshment to 3 visitors. You can find this in chapter 18 of Genesis if you want to read it. And during their visit, Abraham is told that he and Sarah will become parents, even at their considerable age. The passage starts, and I'm emphasizing certain words. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, then you may all wash your feet and rest under the tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." If you look closely at the icon, you'll notice there appears to be harmony between the three characters. In the passage from Genesis, we note that they act as one. Did you notice how the extract started? The Lord appeared to Abraham. The Lord appeared, but as three visitors. In the verbal exchange, Abraham refers to them as Lord, singular, but also invites them all to have refreshment. Later in the passage, we're told about the conversation between the Lord and Abraham. But we're not told which of the three visitors is speaking. Could it be that it doesn't matter because all three are God? The invitation Rohr says that is extended to us, to each and every one of us, and is illustrated by this icon, is to join them. The composition of the icon means that there is an empty space at the table. There is an empty space at the table, and Rohr suggests that, and perhaps this was for Abraham, though in Genesis it appears that he doesn't sit with his visitors but stands by. Rohr suggests this space is actually for us to sit and be in harmony with the three visitors, for us to sit and be in harmony with the Trinity, with Father, Son, and Spirit. And indeed, art historians have noticed this little area here at the table has got a sort of resinous, sticky material on it. And many think that that's because originally it had a small mirror, so that as you observed the icon, you would see your own face reflected back, as though you are there, part of the Trinity. In the divine dance, I didn't find a simple, clear way to explain how the Trinity works. Instead, I found something much, much deeper. A realization of the harmony and oneness that is the relationship between the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. I already knew that they were separate beings. Surely they must be, as the Son prays to the Father. The Father says he is well pleased with the Son at Jesus' baptism. The Spirit descends on the Son. The Son promises that the Spirit will come, as we heard in today's Gospel passage, and as we marked last week at Pentecost. I already knew this. What was new to me is that I am invited to sit with them. I am invited to be with God. We are each invited to be with God. You have often heard me mention in talks how much my faith is built on being in relationship with God and with one another. Here, Richard Rohr is showing that the relationship we're invited into is with God, the Trinity. I wonder whether when you eat a delicious meal, you ask how it's been made. Ask perhaps for the recipe. I wonder whether if you see a beautiful painting, you get up close to try and work out what technique the artist has used. I wonder if you hear an exquisite piece of music, you try to analyze it using music and harmonic theory. Or whether you're one of those people who is able to just enjoy the meal, enjoy the painting, enjoy the music without overcomplicating matters by trying to work out how it is made. The Trinity is one aspect of Christianity that I'm sometimes asked to explain, as happened over lunch with my friend at college. For some, it is used as a reason for not wholeheartedly embracing the Christian faith. How can there be only one God if there are three of them? Over the generations, many hundreds, possibly thousands of books have been written to try to explain it. But of course, just as someone who struggles to boil an egg is unlikely to understand the techniques required to make some complicated meal, we are trying to understand the divine with the limitations of our, merely human consciousnesses. Maybe we should instead be like the person who can enjoy the meal, the painting, or the music without analysis. Maybe we should just enjoy the beauty of this perfect relationship and accept the invitation extended to join the Trinity as it and their divine dance continues. Amen.
Notices this morning. You heard Tim mention our Eco Church service on the 29th. That will be a 10 o'clock service. And then afterwards, there are going to be activities happening in the churchyard. You're encouraged to bring your lunch with you and be able to share that together. And great way of celebrating the work that's gone in to get us to the Eco Church Silver Award, which if you're going out in the porch and look up on your right-hand side, you now see 2 wooden plaques that say that. So please do come along to that service then. Delighted, Jeanette sent me an email on Thursday saying that 1,700 envelopes were delivered for Christian Aid. Just 61 were returned, but an amazing amount that included gift aid was donated was 1,847. So thank you, Jeanette, to you organising that, and I know you and Elizabeth Shaw counted that money. So it's great that we've still been able to raise that money that will, of course, go to support people who Christian Aid work with. Other things that are happening, next Sunday there's a newcomers tea at Sharon Wilson's. Then on the 26th there's a Wild Belt walkabout and film night. So the Wild Belt bit is on the opposite side of London Road where the skate park was, sort of just beside the allotments. Claw and other Chiltern Society have worked on that, and you can go and have a look at that and then come back into church to watch Wilding. And Wilding is a film that tells the story of the Knepp estate in Sussex, where they rewilded that whole estate. The film's really good, really interesting and worth coming watch, and it's all free. So 10 to 7 is the Wild Belt tour and 8 o'clock is the film. So please come along to that. And then on the 28th, it's a tea dance. So that will be happening here in church. And do we need any refreshments doing, or you're all okay for that? So lots going on. Please do be joining in with all of that. This afternoon is our Connect, Create and Celebrate service. And just seeing Jack there. Thank you to people who brought in jars and egg boxes. There's quite a lot, Jack. You may still need a few more. So particularly egg boxes. So the 6 size. They're going to be used for a scavenger hunt. So if you've got egg boxes that can come in, or tall glass jars, that would be really, really helpful. That's for the 29th as well. I think that's everything that I need to tell you.